Hey guys, Dustlander Magic back with another great video. This one is actually part 2 of my series on what's wrong with Magic right now. It mostly hits on what's wrong with Modern, of course, as you saw in the last video. There's so much wrong right now, I barely scratched the surface even with the last video. But I'm also talking about Standard a little bit here because my proposed solutions actually sort of do work with the major complaints about Modern and Standard as well. So that's why I said it's what's wrong with Magic in general right now. Unsurprisingly, my suggestion to fix practically everything is to just power down Modern and obviously power down Standard as well. Take the ridiculously overpowered strategies that have been played for the last couple years, the completely overpowered cards that are just horribly oversaturated in every single top deck, and just get rid of them and just take Modern down a little bit to the point where there's like 100 competitively viable decks or 50 competitively viable decks. Because once you take like the really ridiculous decks like Affinity, which they have already nerfed by getting rid of the artifact lands, they took it down a little bit in power. If they took it down a little bit more, then maybe there would be like an all mono black kill deck that all of a sudden comes out in Modern and people play it and it can actually win tournaments. So then you'd go to one tournament and then go to another and a completely different set of decks would win the second one. So you could actually show up with anything. Now think about what the side effects of this would be. It's not even side effects. That kind of sounds negative. The results, the positive results of this would be shopkeepers, well, ye old shopkeepers, I mean the people who run like the shops that sell cards, they would sell more cards, like a higher variety of cards. So they could still say, yeah, it's a Modern card, it's 8 years old, I'm not going to charge under $3 for it, and I don't think, the prices would just tank. But with not everybody wanting lightning bolts and thought seizes, then they wouldn't constantly be out of lightning bolts and thought seizes. People would be asking for weird stuff like Angel's Grace and Meddling Mage and all the other cards that are quite good that I put in my deck. But since it's not a popular net deck and not everybody wants to get their hands on Angel's Grace, well, there you go. I mean, same goes for like Isochron Scepter. It's a very good card, but it's not really in any top decks. It's in some pretty good decks that actually can win tournaments, maybe, but it's just so much worse than like colorless Eldrazi right now that, come on, I mean, you're not going to win with it. So if they got rid of just Eldrazi, Tron, and Affinity, people say, well, what would be left? About 100 decks would be left. So Modern would be more fun to watch because you just never know what to expect. The tournaments would be more fun because you never know who you're going to play against. And I guess not guaranteeing yourself a win because you're playing a top net deck isn't everybody's idea of fun. But honestly, I'm sick of seeing the same people win the same tournaments. So, I don't really care what they have to say. They shouldn't win every single one. It's just how it shouldn't be. Now, if this did happen, it wouldn't affect Wizards at all because they don't make any money on singles. They don't even sell singles, so what do they care? And then you might say, oh, well, this would harm vendors. Well, vendors are always out of the cards that people want. So what do they care? I mean, honestly, card hoarders and investors, as they call themselves, who own piles and piles of these heavily sought-after cards, they buy them up right before they become popular. Those scumbags are the ones who are affected the most. So who cares? Who cares about them? I really don't. I mean, I kind of actually know a couple people like this, but if you're, going up buying 1,000 copies of a card from every place you possibly can because one of your teammates at a Modern tournament just said, hey, this card is like really dominating and it might go up, so buy them all for $1 right now because you'll be able to get $40 tomorrow for them, and they're holding $100,000 worth of cards, and then all of a sudden they ban a whole bunch of OP cards and people are just playing anything they feel like, and there's just no standout cards that everybody wants. Oh well, they just lost $1 million. They honestly deserve it for trying to hoard cards and just make money off of everybody else by sort of insider trading, I guess you could equate it to. In general, my solution is obviously just get rid of the cards that are just making Modern too darn powerful. There's probably only about a dozen of them. Just get rid of those and just power down the whole format so people can play a wider variety of stuff. That's the overall strategy. But of course, while we're on the topic of completely overpriced formats that nobody can afford to play, that are dominated by overpowered do-everything Swiss Army super decks, let's talk about Standard. In Standard right now, it's completely viable to play 10-cost creatures. That's how completely overpowered and overcontrolled it's gotten. So let's talk about that for a second, because it's actually obviously a really similar solution, is power down Standard. But it's a little bit different when it's Standard because it cycles. The number one problem is that Standard is expensive when lands are expensive. Standard is cheap when lands are cheap. That is the number one dominating factor of the price of Standard. Every single player in every single deck that they build has to use lands, and it's not usually a good idea to run just 20 to 25 just straight basic lands when there's more powerful lands out there. So knowing this information, what did Wizards do? Well, they decided, let's reprint fetch lands at the same time that we promote a 3-color block with 3 sets in it. What could possibly go wrong? Oh, that's right, $30 times 4 copies times 4 colors actually adds up to a pretty good chunk of change. That's what could go wrong. The insane level of build flexibility and a complete lack of any consequences at all for moving beyond one color, I mean, that just resulted in where we're at right now. If you rewind to about a year and a half ago, you could play 3-color if you were really ballsy, and you'd have a really good, flexible, well-balanced, do-it-all Swiss Army deck, but about 25% of the games you would find yourself completely color screwed, or maybe even 10% of the time. But even that, I mean, if you go to a formal tournament as 10 rounds, you're guaranteed to lose one, just because of the way you built your deck. Right now, oh no, I lose a life when I fetch. Oh no. Landfall life gain, lifelink, who cares? You just make up for it. Just whatever you're missing in your deck, you either win so quickly that going from 20 to 19 doesn't mean anything, or you make up for it with actual life gain. Or fog effects, or just whatever makes your deck so powerful that they can't even destroy you in the first place, solves the problem of fetch lands, and there are just horrific consequences of losing one life, which obviously they horribly overestimate it as a drawback. Sometimes they have really powerful cards and they build in a drawback and they think, well, this is just crazy. Like you bring out a Leviathan and you have to return 5 lands to your hand or something. That was a card. This one, I think they said, oh no, you're actively killing yourself. Who cares? The decks are so powerful, it doesn't frickin' matter. It doesn't make any ounce of difference. So that's the number one mistake Wizards made. Right now, there's a whole new power level in Standard that didn't even used to exist because of the limitations of the number of available cards in Standard. The best example I could possibly give you, this is completely true, I swear up and down. We were holding an informal Modern tournament with about 8 to 10 people at a local gaming store one night, and we had an odd number of people, and that's no fun because then you get a buy and automatic points and it throws everything off. So we recruited one of my friends to play, and he said, well, I don't have a Modern deck on me. We're like, well, you can borrow mine. I have 2, whatever. Oh, he doesn't know how to play mine because mine are weird. No surprise there. And he was like, no, I don't like borrowing decks. And then he said, well, I could just play with my Standard deck. And everybody's like, yeah, do that. That's a perfect solution. Because we're like, easy win. I mean, that's even better than getting the bye. If you get paired up against him, it's an automatic win. He came in second place at the tournament with 10 people. He was running a Hardened Scale Managorger Avatar of the Resolute, which if you look at it, it actually does resemble the way that some Modern decks work and the power level of a Modern deck. By turn 4, you've got a 15/15 creature. It's just crazy. I mean, he normally would be running a powerful but not ridiculous deck if it was mono green, but he mixed in white. And he fixed it completely with fetch lands and shock lands or pain lands or whatever he was running. So adding white had no consequences whatsoever to his deck. And so then he was able to bring it to a level of consistent play and consistent winning that made it on par with some Modern decks. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. But he was sitting there just taking Mana Gorger. He's throwing out, 1 Hardened Scales on one turn, 1 Hardened Scales on the next turn. And here comes Mana Gorger Avatar, and the guy who comes out with free counters for, he comes out as a 3/3 for 1. That's exactly classic Modern. And he's just running over Tarmogoyfs with it. That should not be something that happens. That was so messed up. For a comparison of when things used to be better, let's go back in time a little bit to between M14 to M15, maybe a little bit into Theros, but mostly M14 in the following block after that. You could build absolutely anything decent and win Friday Night Magic with it. I built a different deck every 2 weeks, and keep in mind I was brand new to playing. I'd been playing for a month or 2 at that point. And I would bring a deck on the very first attempt playing it, never having even practiced with it, and go top 5. I mean, that happened all the time because I'm just really good at math and probability, and I really like building decks. So I could just come up with any deck for like $10, show up with it, and there you go. It's a well-built deck. It worked. I was paired up against the right people, and there you go. Second place finish. It was really, 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 really fun compared to Magic right now, and that's why I actually kept playing Magic, because, I was brand new to it. I could take it or leave at that point. I had a card collection of like 100 cards, so I was just getting into it, and I said, this is just a riot, because I don't have to sit there and play the same deck, and I don't have to drop $300 on a deck. People are doing that, good for them if that's what they want to do, but I'm bringing dirt cheap decks and still winning, and that's why people find it fun, because if you're a good player, you make good decisions, and you make good deck building decisions, and you don't make mistakes while playing, you will win. I mean, it's as simple as that. That is completely the opposite right now. You show up with a net deck, a chimpanzee could run it, because there's only really one way to run half of them, and then as long as you spent more than the other person, you win, pretty much. One of the absolute most popular top tier net decks that I remember back then was the Minotaur deck. I believe it was red-white. And every single one of those damn Minotaurs were overpowered. They made huge mistakes. Like, they had one where when he enters the battlefield, you take like 8 damage. It's just insane. Nobody could compete with it. Then you're dropping in creatures with like free mana and another version of it, and then you use the mana to cast another one and do this mana loop, and encourages people to stack their deck and put in 8 of the same card. And it was just, the whole deck was a catastrophe, but I ended up beating it pretty often because everybody knew it was coming, and all you had to do was just do like life gain or creature removal, and then they would burn out their hand, and there you go, you win. I mean, wasn't even that hard. Yeah, it was a really, really good solid deck, but there was actually things you could do to stop it, unlike Esper Dragons or Esper Control. There's nothing you could do to stop that, other than, I guess, I don't know, like Duress and Despise, like run 8 of those, I don't know. So when these decks are, in general, less powerful, there are hundreds of viable decks in Standard, and they're competitive decks, and you could actually win with them, instead of right now there's like 4 or 5. I mean, that's pretty much it. People build more decks then. They buy more sleeves, they buy more boxes, they buy more supplies, they show up to the store more often, they might get interested in something else while they're there, they might pick up, food or drink, it's just better. And then they buy a wider variety of cards. That's what's the most important, because then the store's inventory doesn't just take 5 piles of cards, sell out, and then nobody wants the rest, which is what's going on right now, especially in Oath of the Gatewatch, unfortunately. So then it fixes the shortage problem, and it stops people from saying, hey, I need to get my whole entire deck on the internet, because if I go to my local gaming store, they're only going to have 1/3 of the cards I need anytime I ever build a deck anyway. So let's say when Shadows over Innistrad comes out in Standard Cycles and all this 3-color fetch garbage is gone, I cannot wait. That will be like holiday level happiness right there. It'll be like the end of World War II, basically. People will be in the streets with like ticker tape parades and stuff. But let's say it returns to M14 levels, and return to Ravnica and Gatecrash. Everybody loved Gatecrash and Dragon's Maze, everybody's favorite. So let's say it returns to that power level. I think every single person will be happier. Every single player across the board will be happier. The new players, the longtime players, everybody, with the exception of the super try-hard pro wannabe, have-to-win, net deck addicted sociopaths that nobody really cares about in the first place. And honestly, I wish they'd just stop showing up to F&M. It's the people who have to win to have fun, or they're in a bad mood all night. I like to have good matches. That's how I have fun. I mean, yeah, I could just stomp the crap out of people with a $1,000 deck right now and pretend I'm so great because of it, but that's not how I want to play. I like building decks. Like, my own decks, I should say. Anyway, the game would be so much more friendly to new players who can expect to win a few games, with a decent $20 deck, and there would be like world peace and no more nuclear weapons and all mosquitoes and the whole world would die. It's a utopia. So hopefully that's what happens when Shadows comes out. I feel like it won't, because Innistrad was a really powerful block. That little trip to a potential future was lovely, but back in Hell, which is what we're playing right now, Khans of Tarkir ruined everything. Standard is unplayable. Your 2 choices are to either bring a cool, fun, clever deck and lose every single time, like across the board lose every game, or drop $1,000 on a net deck and be bored out of your mind with playing nonstop mirror matches of the same deck, and then win about 50% of the time because everybody else that's good is playing that deck. And right now, if you're a new player, which we had this exact scenario happen last Friday, 2 brand new people who've never been to Friday Night Magic before showed up. They both had really, really solid, good, well-built decks. And the game was just like, haha, screw you. Go find a more friendly game that's not a pay-to-win, zero fun, zero creativity allowed crap fest that it is right now. I don't think they're coming back, honestly. I mean, I was nice to them and we had fun after we both lost the first 2 rounds. And we had a fun little 50-minute shootout with life gain decks. I was playing white. She was playing green, and it was really fun. It was a very good match, and she actually won the middle game. And, you know, I'm a good player. I was running a kind of weak deck, kind of a gimmicky one. Aircraft carrier, by the way, in case you've heard of it on my channel. But, yeah, I did end up winning, but I think she had fun. And I got the impression that she played a bunch of, like, try-hard pros with $1,000 decks in the first 2 games and just got stomped. I mean, it was the type of thing that would make her not want to come back ever again. You keep that kind of toxic environment going long enough and the game's dead. Nobody will play it. I mean, it'll just be gone. So that summarizes what's wrong and what also sort of needs to be fixed in Standard as well. So it's a more specific problem with really an even easier solution than Modern. Now, before you say I'm completely unreasonable for wanting Modern and Standard to both be powered down when Modern was designed to be much more powerful, I'm not saying that they should both get to the point where, like, I don't know, like a plain 3/2 cow for 2 is like the greatest creature ever, like it's considered great in your deck. You know, when there's stuff out there that's a little bit more powerful right now in Modern. Modern is meant to be more flexible, reactive, and, you know, diverse with a huge card pool to choose from. So all the kill spells are better because you have more to choose from. All the creatures are better because you have more to choose from, and, you know, it goes on like that. So that's great. You have more flexibility to build a more powerful deck, and all your creatures and all your spells are more powerful. Well, so is your opponent's cards. I mean, so shouldn't you be playing a real actual game of Magic against your opponent instead of this ridiculous turn 4 combo nonsense? You know, with like creatures swinging at each other and like bouncing them back to hand and killing them and like ambush boosting and all the other stuff that the research and development people carefully designed into the individual blocks. That's how the game was actually designed to be played, not infinite creature clones attacking you for 1,000,000 damage on turn 4, and technically still following the rules somehow. So here's my simple proposal for Modern specifically, because I already said I want it powered down, but how do I want to do it? So here's specifically what I think should be fixed, and I will tell you right now, people are going to disagree with this, mainly because, 1, they suck at math, logic, planning, probability, and complex systems, and 2, they're so used to Modern being what it is right now. So this is going to be controversial, but after you read all this, or I mean, after I read all this and you listen to it, because I wrote it down in a lovely script, you cannot possibly say that this wouldn't have the intended consequences of fixing the game, like I said. It would definitely be different, but it would definitely fix the situation. Step 1. Get rid of 1/2 of every single known infinite combo in the entire format. Infinite combos are crap, everybody universally hates them, and they completely ruin the format. Even the people who work at Wizards have said, yes, we try not to let infinite combos happen, and yet they did let it happen in Modern, because Modern is more powerful. Well, now it's just a stupid pile of crap that nobody wants to play, and everybody wants the same cards. So obviously, the decision not to enforce that policy was really, really, really bad. Next, I highly recommend that they get rid of every single way to generate way too much mana way too early of a turn. So bye-bye Simian Spirit Guide and all the other clones of it. Which actually, if you look at the ban list, like just comparing it to just how Charbelcher is built, we'll say, about, I think, 80% of the mana cards in Charbelcher are illegal or outright banned. So, I mean, what does that tell you? Oh, and I think you might have heard of a card called Summer Bloom. Yeah, that's on the ban list too now because it's too much mana too early. In fact, Wizards agrees with what I just said. They agree that having too much mana on too early of a turn was completely universally unfair no matter what you do with the mana, and that's why they banned Summer Bloom. In fact, their exact words were, word for word, quote, "When the deck generates 7 mana on turn 2, there are a lot of cards that could lead to a quick finish, so we focused on the cards that lead to that explosive mana." End quote. You think? I mean, doesn't take a complete genius to figure that out. You could actually be a complete idiot and figure out that 7 mana on turn 2 might be exploitable. They might be able to maybe do something with that. So every single exile from hand and get X mana or spend 2, get 3, every single card like that needs to be gone. They are all across the board unfair, overpowered crap. And as far as I know, there's only 2 or 3 of them in Modern, so it won't even be that big of an impact. Next, get rid of all the cards that break the unwritten rules. You know, like, well, basically balancing rules I'm referring to specifically for Modern. Like, a red spell can't do more than a certain amount of damage unless its mana cost is a certain amount, or put a restriction or reduction on it. So in other words, bye-bye Lightning Bolt, the number one most universally stupidly overpowered card that everybody uses. Believe it or not, now this is going to shock you, but I checked this. Looking back at the last couple Modern tournaments, out of all the decks that entered the tournament, because they record the exact configuration, Lightning Bolt is in 50 to 70% of them. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. If you needed evidence that a card is overpowered, have 70% of people put it in a deck? I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's utterly ridiculous. People are saying, oh, MTG now consists of 40% Eldrazi decks. Still hasn't even come close to Lightning Bolt. Lightning Bolt needs to get banned, and yes, they will piss off every single player, but they let it get to this point. It's their fault. They have to fix it at a certain point, and they have to ban Lightning Bolt. They just have to. I've overheard discussions of people building brand new Modern decks and saying, oh yeah, but that'll die to Lightning Bolt. Oh, I put this in, it's a worse form, but it won't die to Lightning Bolt. Oh, but this is great, but Lightning Bolt. Oh, I want to put in this spell, but I gotta have something to stop Lightning Bolt. I am sick and tired of hearing about the damn Lightning Bolt. Just get rid of it, Wizards. What the hell are you waiting for? You can't do 3 damage to a player or creature as an instant for 1. It needs to be a sorcery. It needs to cost 2. I mean, look at what they did to Roast, Tears of Valakut. They put limitations on it. Look what they did to Crater's Claws. It's X. I mean, it's just so obvious that that is an antique from before the research and development department knew anything about what the hell they were doing. And obviously, Lightning Bolt is not the only card that I have a problem with, and not even I have a problem with, the Wizards' unwritten rules have a problem with. Like, another unwritten rule, which I'm making a whole series about this, by the way. Anti-magic cannot cost under 3 without a downside. And the lower below 3 you get, the more of a downside and the narrower of a spell it can be able to cancel. That's an unwritten rule. So, unfortunately, there actually are no cards in blue that break that rule right now in all of Modern. But if you go back to just before Modern, you're looking at Counterspell. It's literally cancel for 2, and they're never going to reprint that. Because, I mean, it's now, much more recently, an unwritten rule that they can't do that. And if you look at every red spell that's been printed in the last about 4 or 5 years, maybe even like 8 years, you just don't have one that does 7 damage for 2 mana. They have these ratios that are fair and they stick to them. So what they should have done is went through, checked all the red cards and said, does this comply with our new policy of fairness that we've invented in the last couple years? No, it doesn't. Ban it. But they never did a cleanup before they invented Modern. They just do reactionary banning, which is really stupid. The next lovely feature of Modern that absolutely needs to be removed is deck fixing cantrips and card draw cantrips. Now, if you're not familiar with the term, those are effectively free spells, or by some definitions, instants that draw a card to replace themselves with another card from your deck with little to no mana used. So, I don't know, the only one I can think of right off the top of my head is Gitaxian Probe. That would be a perfect example. It either costs 1 or 0, and then you get to do something, and then you get to draw a card. So, the card, every time you draw it, becomes another card from the top of your library. So, if you have 4 Gitaxian Probes in your 60-card deck, you really actually have a 56-card deck, because every time you pull it, it's going to magically instantly evaporate and turn into another card, from a probability standpoint. And that just, it's like playing with a 48-card deck in some cases. So obviously you're going to draw the cards you want, and then there's ones that allow you to scry. I mean, that's insane because it fixes your next couple of turns. So on the exact same topic, they also need to ban a portion of the Anticipate clones, like, for example, Serum Visions. So Anticipate and Serum Visions are usually just Modern staples because they let you just do whatever you want and kind of fix your next couple turns. They have already banned Ponder, Treasure Cruise, and Dig Through Time, so this is not a new concept I came up with. Wizards obviously says too much card control, too much free draw, can't have it. So there are still a whole ton of cards that let you, I guess you would say, fix your next 3 turns, and they're all legal. So, you'll draw 1, scry 2, or scry 3, or scry 3 then draw 1, or, draw 3 then discard 2, and, there's just so many different versions of the same stupid idea that if the next 3 cards on your library are terrible, they would lose you the game because your deck is, fluctuating. Like, it doesn't always work the same way. That's how Magic works. And you just made it work the same way every single game. It's too consistent. There's no variability, and then you're guaranteed to have a great combo go off on turn 4 or 5. So the whole idea of fixing and scrying, it's really the only purpose Blue even has in Modern, and it just needs to go. That's really only a start to what I think they need to ban, but, you get the idea. It's just the overpowered cards. A lot of, the other topics, if I were to keep going, are actually just individual cards, like Aether Vial. That card needs to go. I mean, I can't really say every card like it. Maybe every free cast card, every way to free cast something needs to go. Hello, show and tell. I mean, what they do to the legality of show and tell, I wonder. Oh, that's right. It's just another great example of Wizards completely agreeing with me, but not actually enforcing anything. They do agree that free casting should be extremely limited because it's too powerful, so a whole bunch of the free cast cards are banned in Modern or restricted in, Vintage or whatever. So, they agree with me, but then they let Aether Vial be legal. You guys want to know a really fun fact about Aether Vial? Most people don't actually know this. It's legal in Modern, but it's banned in its own block. So it says Mirrodin block banned. So if you're doing a Mirrodin block draft, I guess, I don't really know how block banning works, but I would assume you pull the card and then you're just not allowed to use it. You cannot put it in your deck. It's too powerful. So it's too powerful within like 1/2 of the size of Standard, but it's perfectly legitimate in Modern. I mean, where do they get this logic from? It's like just complete idiots work at Wizards, which I think we can all agree that's pretty much true from past evidence. So in summary, as far as Standard goes, it's really simple. Here's how you fix it permanently. Never print 3 colors ever again. Ever, ever, ever. I don't care if they call them shards or clans or whatever, just never go there again. 3-color is just in general a format breaking pile of garbage that dominates all the time without any fear of getting color screwed ever. They always make it viable to play 3-color when the set is designed around 3 colors, obviously. So they'll make sure you've got the right mana fixing, the right rare lands, they'll make it work. And they just need to stop making it work, and they need to stop printing it. So thank God they finally announced in an official press release, and this is actually the only good news in the whole video, Wizards announced that they are purposely moving back to a 2-color format in Shadows over Innistrad. And they stopped just short of apologizing for the complete catastrophe that was 3-color with fetches. They kind of said something to the effect of, yeah, it's not great or something like that, but they didn't say, holy crap, this is a catastrophe, we're losing customers, nobody wants to play Standard and the decks cost $1,000, we royally screwed up. That's what they meant to say, but I guess the PR department didn't really let them, so they said something a little bit milder. But yeah, Magic is a complete disaster right now, nobody wants to play it, nobody can afford it, and if they keep going this way, it'll just kill the game permanently. So hopefully they really do actually, when April rolls around and when cons of customer losses and what's the other one? Customer base reforged, I believe it was. When those cycle out of Standard, we can finally get back to playing real Magic from back in the M14 days and a whole bunch of the sets before that, honestly. Now, as for Modern, they're just never going to fix that. I mean, I said what I think they need to do to fix it, but they're just never going to do it. I mean, it's complete fantasy. It's completely wishful thinking. So the least you can do is at least go play my beautiful, awesome work of art known as the Beholder Alpha deck. Yeah, no surprise that that's my solution to screwing with Modern right now and solving the whole, same 10 decks win situation. Same 3, honestly, at the last tournament. For real, though, I am completely unstoppable with it on X-Mage. No matter what people throw at me, I have a huge win percentage. And I've actually taken people on at Friday Night Magic in one-on-one grudge matches in person, so I know it's not just some idiot on Xmage. I know they're actually skilled people, because, you know, they were talking up their net deck like, oh, I love my modern deck, it's so great, it wins all the time, and I tell them, oh, I built my own deck, and automatically they start talking crap about it. Just because I built it and it's my own creation, it must suck. So I've had people just be like, oh no, it's not good. Oh, what is this? What's in it? Oh, that sounds like crap. So I take them on one-on-one and just destroy them. That's exactly what happened on Friday. So it is a very technically difficult deck to run. You have to really, really concentrate on what you do and when. But if you do play it properly, it is a minefield to play against. It's just outrageous. It's right up there with like the decks that give yourself hexproof with like Orbs of Warding and that white dude. You just shut down Burn. I mean, it's over for Burn. And this is right up there with it, if not worse, because you can just stop everything. So that'll definitely throw a monkey wrench in Modern. So if you guys start showing up with that, the people will stop showing up with the top net decks. It's as simple as that. So do your part to help piss off net deckers in Modern, and hopefully if enough people start playing it, it'll shift the meta to the point where nobody cares about the OP cards anymore. That was my goal. So yeah. I love watching net decking sheep get super turbo aggro over losing to me, and hopefully you guys too. And I'll see you guys next video when hopefully Magic will be more fun to play, but probably not.